Saw. Into Dixon. Hoosier switches onto him. Dixon the kick. Trimble! Got it! And Carolina wins it!
As if we needed something to help us get back into the swing of things, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of All Access AM. I am Billy Embody. Happy Super Bowl Monday. That day after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday, but we are here with you guys to get back at it after a much-needed week off for the podcast, our first full week off since we started this thing back in October. So thrilled to be back with you guys on our live stream. We appreciate you guys being with us Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern time for this week. Next week, we make the move to 8 to 9 a.m. Central time, 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern time. We think based on what we've seen from our live streams, we've done a couple in the 8 to 9 a.m. Central time hour. We think you guys will get a little bit more interactive, maybe while you're sitting in your office, maybe for some of you that are on the commute. We're seeing that the numbers might play a little bit better. So we're going to try it. We'll see how it goes, and we'll figure out what's best for the show. But for the off season, we're going to go 8 to 9. That also allows me to help out a little bit more getting our son Jack to school. So get to spend a little bit more time with him as well. So thrilled to have you guys with us on this Monday. We are back at it. We are going to open with a lot of UNC Duke talk, but building it around the rest of the ACC and what it means for the race for the ACC championship of the regular season, seeding in the ACC tournament, NCAA tournament bracketology, all those things we've got to talk about. And we have a week's worth, but it feels like a mountain's worth of conversation to talk about on some other topics too. I mean, my notebook is full. My notes app on Apple is full as well of links and all sorts of things that we've got to talk about relating to the ACC. So we will sprinkle some of this throughout the week. We'll of course be heavy ACC basketball this week as well, but there are a lot of things going on in the sport and that are impacting the ACC that I would like to talk about a little bit. We're going to see what happens post Super Bowl with some of these staffing moves. Maybe more ACC assistant coaches on the football side of things might be moving on to the NFL. So we'll table some of that. That's one thing that I want to look at. I want to look at early top 25s. I want to look at, how I see the ACC in the college football playoff next year. We have all sorts of time to do those things because it is the off season. That is what it is. You don't have to hide from it because in the ACC, we have ACC basketball. And what a thriller it was Saturday with Carolina Duke. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But do want to remind you guys, of course, Monday's show presented by our friends at Security National Bank. Security National Bank, a family bank for you and your loved ones, your friends to get involved with and realize why they have been so successful over their decades of leadership in the financial sector. And the great thing is you could trust them with your personal wealth, your business, all of those things that people wonder, well, how can I get them under one roof and get that attention to detail that, the larger banks really try to tout and things like that. Well, you can't without sticking with somebody like Security National Bank that relies on those family foundational values to chart your course in the financial space. So make sure you reach out to them today. Go to securitynational.bank for more information. You can also give them a call at 844-762-1964. That's 844-762-1964. Their phone lines will be open before you know it this morning. So maybe call them on the way into the office, schedule a meeting, and get on the financial path that you want to be on with our friends at Security National Bank. Big supporters of the ACC and college athletics. They just love it. So appreciate Security National Bank. Carolina Duke, a game that luckily I got to watch as was back in the country, spent some time in Mexico. It's great when your wife has those work conferences that can take you to some pretty nice places. So Puerto Vallarta, highly recommend the spot over there on the west coast of Mexico. 71-68 though. North Carolina tops Duke. Seth Trimble's game-winning three in the final seconds there. Just enough to be called a buzzer beater in my books, but 0.4 seconds put back on the clock after a Carolina court storming, which we'll get into because I've got some thoughts on what John Shire said as well. But North Carolina defeats Duke 71-68, a game really of two halves. But I want to start with Seth Trimble because on this show, and this is not, but it's probably going to come off as a slight to transfers and different journeys and players that move around a bunch in different schools. But I still love when we have college basketball, college football, all other sports players that stay the course for 4 years. And even through the ups and downs, even through opportunities taken away from you and that you have to earn back, they stick with it because they want to be somewhere. And then they get rewarded for moments like Seth Trimble had against Duke Saturday night. Hits the three to win it. Just a incredible moment for him and I'm sure his family, and one that he'll always remember, being somebody that faced so much adversity even this year, to come back from that injury, get back on the court and return to form right away. I think he had a big night in his return to the floor after his injury earlier this year, but 16 points for him. Just a solid night, 5 of 7 from the field. Didn't really do anything to hurt the Tar Heels for the most part. Just an efficient night. And Caleb Wilson brings in 23 points. But Seth Trimble's the story here in a sense that, having that opportunity to hit that three and, write his own name in this rivalry's books is just so special for a player who's gone all 4 years with Hubert Davis at North Carolina and is, stuck with everything that's gone on there. You got to give flowers to Seth Trimble for his poise in the moment to knock down that shot. It was a great pass too, as they got the rotation and had Seth Trimble open in the corner and he knocked it down. And what a moment for the Dean Center as well. That stadium has come under some conversation lately about what's next for it, whether it be a major renovation or a new arena entirely. I think anytime you have these cathedrals of college sports, try your best to keep them as close to what you want as you possibly can for the old days. But I will say it needs touch-ups. There's no doubt there are major touch-ups, but for moments like these, that's why we keep the nostalgic feel of some of these great college basketball arenas. And there are so few of them left, in a sense, that won't be renovated, that won't be changed over for the new wave of attendance and premium seating and all of those things. But I remember my first time going out there, and Roy Williams is sitting up a little bit, kind of with a great view and a great seat, but most would have premium seating and things like that for people we would call dignitaries of this day and age. But that is just an arena that no doubt needs some work, but got an incredible moment last Saturday to have that happen in the rivalry and to snap what was a 3-game losing streak, I believe, for Carolina in that rivalry. I think that's just a cool moment there for that arena, and for Seth Trimble to lead it in the final seconds was really cool. Duke looked like they were going to find a way to really, I think, kind of take over this game and make it kind of a no contest in a sense. They were up 41-29 at the half. You're sitting there in a precarious spot. They finished the first half really strong, and we're kind of limiting anything North Carolina wanted to do in the paint pretty well. But North Carolina didn't back down in the second half, and they shot 60% from the floor in the second half, which I thought was impressive to kind of turn the wagons around there, and then went on a 13-4 run over the final however many minutes it was, 5 or so, to get the win. Really impressive stuff from Hubert Davis and his coaching staff to get that done for his team and to find a way and to get that on track. And here's what Hubert Davis said about Seth Trimble after the game and that game-winning shot. Quote, he was the one, because during this time of NIL and transfer portal, having a kid as accomplished as Seth to stay at one school for 4 years, that shot was made by the perfect person at the right time. He's deserving of being remembered forever because of the commitment and the devotion that he's made to his teammates, to this program, to this university, to his community. Couldn't have gone to a better person. I'm so proud and so happy for him. That's Hubert Davis on Seth Trimble. And I think somebody that obviously gets it and understands why you really try to retain key people like that for your program. And it is for moments like that. It's for experience in the rivalry. It's for that meaningfulness of the rivalry for somebody on that roster, and a roster that went out in the offseason and certainly needed to be upgraded, certainly needed to be addressed and to be brought back to the level that it is now. A team that has a shot at an ACC regular season championship. They're on the outside looking in at 7-3 in league play as a whole, but still sitting in a situation now where they could do it. They can make it happen. They've got to go on a tremendous run over the final however many games remaining here as they sit 2.5 games back. But they have revamped this roster in a way now where this is obviously a signature win. They're going to make the NCAA tournament, barring a collapse of sorts here down the stretch. They're 14-0 at home and have been able to pick up some key wins here. They haven't been perfect at the same time. They're a work in progress still, but they deserved that one, and the execution down the stretch was really impressive. Duke, though, you can't hang your hat on this as a loss where you want to overreact and do all those things, because Duke was able to do a lot of things that they normally do very well. They just didn't finish. You get that in a rivalry game at various moments. I think when you see what Duke has on the floor game in, game out, you've got to still trust them as a 1 seed. We'll kind of get into some bracketology stuff in just a moment. But that is a team that I think just ran into an opponent that was highly motivated, was certainly ready for the challenge, and had seen maybe some cracks in Duke's play here and there throughout the ACC play. I think you look at a kind of common opponent with Duke and North Carolina, SMU going into Duke and playing them really tough without a Boopy Miller. I think when teams watch other teams play without best players and have success in a sense, even though SMU didn't come out on top, North Carolina probably watched that film and figured that they could find a way with all that they have. I mean, Caleb Wilson wasn't able to go nuts on the glass in terms of dunking the basketball on Saturday, but still had a successful 23-point outing. There are different ways you can go out and beat teams, and North Carolina found a way to do that against Duke. But there are key moments in a game that if you don't handle them the right way, you're not going to come out on top. And in a rivalry game, it's so important that when it's crunch time and the game is still in the balance, I saw this a couple times over the weekend where it can go against you. And they were up 7. Duke was, a few minutes left, and they just didn't get the execution that they needed to. And when you let teams hang around and you let teams go on a little bit of a mini run to keep it close, you open yourself up for allowing that other team to have confidence to say, hey, we've gone on a little bit of a mini run. We need one now. We know what we need to do to execute in that regard. But Duke was up 6 points with 2:52 to go. Now that's a small margin for that amount of time, but nonetheless, with a Duke team that had been so good on making their layups and in the paint, it was surprising to me to see them not close that out. And just the way that Duke had been throughout the year, kind of a boa constrictor like team, I feel like in key moments, they did not get that out of their players in the final minutes. Now, we're going to play a video here for you in just a second from the Field of 68, our friends here at On 3, that is John Shire addressing the post-game court storming. And I'm not going to turn this into a post-game court storming podcast. And I, in my opinion, would say that maybe Carolina shouldn't have stormed the court because they are North Carolina. But I get it in the moment in a sense as well. That said, John Shire said something really peculiar, I think, because we've now been 2 days here, and who knows, maybe they're going to have a press conference on Monday, and maybe on the ACC coaches teleconference, we'll hear more about this, how the staff members are doing and such. But here's what John Shire said after the game about the court storming and what happened to some of his staff members.
Any questions about the game? For me, it's hard to talk about the game when I was most concerned just for the safety of our players after the game. Like, I don't want to make it about that because Carolina, they played a great game to win, and that's a heartbreaking loss for our team. You know, I got staff members that got punched in the face. My family pushing people away, trying to not get trampled, and that's not what this game is about. And you give them all the credit in the world. It's not about the game, but obviously that was a scary ending, and this rivalry is not about that. As far as the game itself,
what we saw is something that North Carolina is going to handle swiftly. Is a water bottle being thrown at a Duke staff or Duke player, something that needs to be addressed. And I would imagine UNC through video replay, and I've seen this a couple times where there's been, I think it might have been Tennessee. Tennessee was throwing things. It might have been at Lane Kiffin. So some of you might applaud that in the chat. But I think you look at what John Shire said, and if it's true, then North Carolina has an obligation to do a lot to fix that, to look at who did that, to figure out how to best take care of those people. And if that means legally or whatnot, then I'm sure they'll do that. But as a coach, if my staff members were punched in the face, and he said staff members, and even if he meant staff member, were punched in the face, I would know who that person was, and I would name them in the post-game press conference. And I've seen a couple coaches through whether it be some court stormings or field stormings, kind of say like things have happened to people and that's why they're dangerous. And they either don't know the full story or they don't know what actually happened, or in a couple rare cases, they've been flat out not true. So I want to be careful here too, because I would hope that when we hear from John Shire on the ACC coaches teleconference on Monday, that he has more information, that there is something that I think is substantial as far as what happened. And maybe I'll look a little silly talking about it like this, but if there wasn't a staff member that was punched in the face, I think we need to see a little bit of a walk back here, and maybe an apology as well. So keep that violet away. I don't want to go any further than that, because then I don't have video angles to look at all those things. But it was surprising to me that he didn't say so-and-so got punched in the face by a fan, and then a couple people, ESPN reached out to Duke for a comment. They cited privacy as far as, why they couldn't say anything. So just a kind of weird thing. Another piece to this rivalry, though, that just had a incredibly dramatic chapter to it written in Chapel Hill Saturday night, and what an evening it was. But Bubba Cunningham did apologize to John Shire after the game as well for the schools, to the schools side of it. But Duke said that one person had been injured, but didn't have any other details. So we'll see. I'll be interested to see if people start poking around in that. But there was a large foul discrepancy as well, so that one might overshadow it a little bit more as the dust settles from it. But we'll see how it all goes between those two teams, as they, of course, have another meeting to close things out in the regular season at Duke, March 7th, 5:30 p.m. Central on ESPN. What a matchup that'll be. Let's do this. We'll look back on Saturday's action here real quick for you guys here. We want to do this first half or so of the show is going to be largely college basketball recap on the ACC side of things. Saturday's action was a good day for the ACC. Kind of everybody that was supposed to win, I would argue, won their games. Not much else drama. That was all saved up for Carolina Duke, apparently. But you look around the league, and UVA took on Syracuse at home. UVA wins 72-59, kind of a sleepwalkish, type of performance in a sense. A 38-35 halftime lead for UVA, but ultimately they were able to get it done. And Sam Lewis had 16 in that one, and they were able to, slow down a Syracuse team that generally more potent than 59 points offensively. Clemson, the number 1 team, now tied at the top with Duke in the ACC standings, goes out to the West Coast and caps a 2-0 week out there at Cal and Stanford. I mean, man, if I'm Clemson, aren't you staying Sunday and just getting your guys around the Super Bowl a little bit? Nah, probably not. But 77-55, Clemson beats Cal. What a cool week, though, to be out in the Bay Area. If you're a college basketball team, you got the buses. Hopefully they did like the NFL experience or something like that. But Clemson wins 77-55 in that one. They continue to be just a really, really impressive program. 20-4 on the year, 10-1 in the ACC. They're 20th overall. We haven't had the AP poll come out yet, but they're 20th nationally. They continue to play a brand of basketball that's a lot of fun to watch. 55% from the field out west in that matchup at Cal, and they get balanced scoring. 4 guys in double figures. Nobody really blowing the doors off of it, but they did have RJ Godfrey with 13, Ace Buckner with 13 in that one as well. And Justin Pippen led all scores with 19 as Cal falls to 17-7 and 5-6 overall in ACC play. Then you get to Louisville heading on the road to play Wake Forest, which a lot of people wondering, is this the end of the Steve Forbes era out there with the Demon Deacons, who now sit at 11-12 overall, 2-8 in ACC play. Cardinals now 17-6, 7-4 in league play. They got what they needed to, I think, out of this one and just getting by it. This was a Louisville team that had a 9-point halftime lead, and Wake really gave them everything they could handle down the stretch. But Louisville made free throws. They were able to handle business from the line. Still only 77% from the free throw line for the game. 24 of 31. Kind of got a little aggressive at going, getting those fouls late as Wake was trying to extend the game. But Louisville gets out of there with an 8-point road win. That's always nice to see for your team. And they had 5 guys. They had 6 players in double figures scoring in that one. And Juke Harris had a big day for Wake Forest with 25 points in that matchup. Louisville continues to get back on track. They're still, I still think they're trying to find their identity a little bit. I might argue that, with Michael Brown coming back, they're still trying to find their way a little bit. NC State hosted Virginia Tech, and NC State didn't let that road win at SMU linger over them. They came out and they had a dominant first half defensively. They held Virginia Tech to 24 points, 36-24 at the half. That's what it was. Then the teams exploded in the second half offensively. Virginia Tech outscored NC State 49-46 in the second half. You had Copeland with another impressive performance for NC State, getting 21 points. Paul McNeil Jr., 21 points in that one as well for the Wolfpack. Darian Williams, 1 of 9 from the field, just 4 points for him. But Virginia Tech, Amani Hansberry led them with 19. Virginia Tech now 16-8 overall, 5-6 in the ACC. NC State 18-6 overall, 9-2 in the ACC. Will Wade has them right at the top, battling for a regular season championship. They do have some opportunities here to make some moves. In a sense, they've got Duke on their calendar, and they did beat Clemson, which that win might loom large if Clemson can get knocked off by somebody else and they can beat Duke. NC State in year 1 of the Will Wade era could be the regular season ACC champions. They do have a tough test now over their next really 4 games here. They go at Louisville. We'll talk about that in just a moment, Monday night. And then they face Miami. They face North Carolina. They face Virginia. 3 of their next 4 games at top 25 teams. But NC State making a move here to threaten for the ACC regular season championship in just year one of Will Wade. And he's just done a tremendous job. You go back to SMU, which Will Wade and the Wolfpack had dispatched of earlier in the week, and they got back on the right track, 86-67 at Pitt. Panthers have been outscored by 39 points in their last two games. SMU kind of woke up a little bit, 34-32 in the first half. SMU started really slow. Pitt kind of held the lead. SMU was able to battle back and get hot there late in the first half, and after kind of an abysmal start shooting the basketball, they went on to finish with 57% from the field. I think they shot 70% in the second half, which is pretty sweet for the Mustangs. But John Pierre Jr., Boopy Miller combined to score 41 in this one as SMU improves to 16-7 overall, back to 500 in ACC play at 5-5. Pitt Panthers 9-15 overall, 2-9 in league play. SMU is an NCAA tournament team. As long as they kind of take care of business here, they don't suffer any poor losses. They've got Notre Dame on the schedule here coming up on Tuesday night at home. They go at Syracuse and get a rematch with Louisville, which could be a big seeding game for SMU if they can come away with that one. So some critical games coming up for SMU as long as they stay the course and don't lose some of those games that they should take care of business in. They'll be in the NCAA tournament as what could be a 7 to 8 team ACC field. Miami took care of business at Boston College, which everybody seems to do. BC now 2-8 in ACC play, 9-14 overall. Miami 18-5, 7-3 in league play. Malik Renault 23 points for the Hurricanes. Shelton Henderson another 19 in that one. Miami is going to hit a critical stretch here as well. If they want this to happen and make the tournament, they're going to have to go on a little bit of a mini run here as well. North Carolina, NC State, Virginia Tech, Virginia, all teams over their next 4 matchups that can beat them in these next couple weeks of February. And, on a good night for most of those teams are going to beat Miami. So Miami has a chance to show if they're real or if they're a little fugazi, so to speak. And we'll see their NCAA tournament hopes and dreams, either jump up a notch or drop down a little bit. Florida State took care of business on the road at Notre Dame, 82-79. FSU is sitting there now, improving, but very much out of anything right now with how the first season has gone. 4-6 in league play, 11-12 overall. Notre Dame has been a little pesky as of late, but 11-13, 2-9 in league play. I still think the Micah Shrewsbury era could be something to keep an eye on there in South Bend, and if they make a change there. But this is a game that I don't know how many of you out there were watching this one, but not a great one, not generally enjoyable to watch, but we'll leave it at that. Two of the ACC's bottom feeding teams getting together. Stanford did bounce back from their loss to Clemson by winning 95-72 at home over Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech 11-13, 2-9 in ACC play. Stanford 15-9, 4-7 though in league play. So they are now squarely, I would say, out of the picture. But another incredible performance by Abuka Okorie, 40 points. The only other Stanford Cardinal that had double figures in scoring is Jeremy Dent-Smith, 16. Stanford gets the win. And that is your Saturday recap for you guys. But if you guys have been watching the show and keeping an eye on this, hopefully you guys have found different ways to support your college basketball teams. And you can do that with our friends at Sportsmo. Whether it be points, whether it be 3-pointers, whether it be a win, you can quote unquote bet on all of your teams, but really you pick your college basketball team, you pick your favorite team, and you make those pledges to make donations based on how they perform with our friends at Sportsmo. So Sportsmo is now available to college basketball fans, so make sure you download the app today and learn how you can support your favorite college basketball teams with your micro donations that are tax deductible.
College basketball hits different with Sportsmo. You tap, they score. You pledge. They drop a 3. You give as a group. They win as a team. At this point, you're not watching a game, you're in it. Download the app, fund your wallet, and get in the game. Download Sportsmo. Power the play.
And we have a few more items on the agenda here for our basketball side of things. And we hope you guys have enjoyed checking out, learning more about our friends at Sportsmo. They continue to step up for college athletics as everybody is trying to find new ways for people to get involved in donating and supporting their program. So make sure you guys look at them. Sportsmo.org is where you can download the app and learn more about what they can do for you, your college basketball team. Monday night, we do have NC State at Louisville. A big matchup on ESPN. Could be a top 25 matchup, maybe. I don't know. We'll see what the AP top 25 does. I would imagine most of them, for some reason, don't enjoy watching Will Wade do what he is doing now in Raleigh, although it is super entertaining as this is a very important matchup if Louisville is to have any hope or prayer of capturing an ACC regular season championship. They're 7-4 overall, 3 games back. NC State, if they lose this one, this could be a heartbreaker in a sense as well for them. But this one, again, 6 p.m. on ESPN. Tuesday night, we got North Carolina at Miami, 6 p.m. on ESPN. Got to make sure if you're the Tar Heels that you don't falter there after a big emotional win Saturday night. Virginia at Florida State, 6 p.m. on ESPNU. Notre Dame at SMU, 6 p.m. on ACC Network. Duke at Pitt, 8 p.m. on ESPN. Man, you got to feel for Pitt in that one. That could be really ugly. I would not want to be in the way of the Duke Blue Devils. But as we look to bracketology, according to On3's James Fletcher, our friend of the show, who we'll have on later this week, still has Duke on the 1 seed line for the NCAA tournament. And the Blue Devils are among the group that includes Arizona, Michigan, and Iowa State now in the latest projected bracketology. The first 4 in Dayton would feature a matchup between USC and Miami. How about those two schools, those two matchups in Dayton trying to fight their way into the NCAA tournament? So Miami still on the bubble on that last 4 in line there. And then you get into the West region in San Jose, Portland, North Carolina. That is where they would be against Stephen F. Austin out of the Southland Conference. You then continue down the line as we look at the South region. SMU would face Utah State. The Mustangs would be a 9 seed in St. Louis. Again, that's the South region in out of Houston. You look at if Miami wins in that 11 seed matchup, it would be a trip to Buffalo right after that to face BYU. Quite the matchup there. You get into the Midwest region for the NCAA tournament, and Virginia would draw Virginia would go to San Diego as the 4 seed, face UC Irvine, the 13 seed out of the Big West. That would run through Chicago. What a fun region that would be to finish up in. And then you get to Philadelphia in the Midwest region. Clemson, the 7 seed, facing UCF in our On3 projected bracketology. We head over to the East. That is where Duke would be as the 1 seed in Greenville, facing Harvard out of course, the Ivy League. And you look at the rest of that, you would have another ACC school in Greenville, Louisville facing the winner of Texas, San Diego State, that 6-11 seed matchup there. And NC State projected 7 seed to Buffalo out of that East region. So that is 3 ACC schools in the East region, according to On3 bracketologist James Fletcher. NC State would face Wisconsin, and that is all the bracketology. So quite a few ACC teams in the latest round of bracketology for On3. Projected AP Top 25 rankings, Duke at number 6 after their loss, North Carolina moving into the top 10 at number 10, and Louisville sticking at 24, Clemson at 19, moving up a spot. So Virginia at 15, they were at 18 last week. So all sorts of changes across the kind of bracketology and top 25 and all of those things. So we appreciate you guys following along as we continue on the ACC basketball side of the pod. But we now get to football talk and really some overarching discussion around Jim Phillips hitting his 5-year anniversary as ACC commissioner. That came while we were on break, and on 3, national reporter Brett McMurphy had a great Q&A with Jim Phillips on some of the things that are pressing. But do you want to say Super Bowl? I am bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning because I turned it off. So I missed some of the late drama in a sense, which was a couple of touchdowns. As soon as I turned it off and we started watching a show, a couple of touchdowns rained in. But congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks, a couple of ACC guys making an impact on that team. But really, New England was littered with ACC players all over, whether it be the practice squad or whether it be starting guys and things like that. But a couple of Duke players are now Super Bowl champ. A couple of ACC players are now Super Bowl champions. Duke did have one, Jake Bobo, second-team wide receiver on the Seattle Seahawks. We also had Cam Akers, a practice squad guy for Seattle, as a Super Bowl champion out of FSU. You go to Elijah Arroyo, a player that I covered in high school, getting a Super Bowl ring with the Seahawks as a tight end. And you get to Chaz Surratt, a linebacker from North Carolina, getting his Super Bowl ring. And Drake Thomas, starting linebacker for the Seahawks, getting a Super Bowl ring out of NC State. You look at Olu Oluwatimi. He's an offensive lineman for the Seahawks. He started out as an ACC player, as did Kenneth Walker, of course, Virginia and Wake Forest, but both went on to finish their careers elsewhere and finished at Michigan and finished at Michigan State, respectively, on those ones. But a pretty cool moment for Seattle and what they were able to do with Mike Macdonald, that defense. I will say the first half was just legendary defensive play by the Seahawks, and really, really respect what they built there. I thought Kenneth Walker III was just awesome. So good. He was one of my fantasy football running backs this year. So kind of a backup role on the fantasy team for most of the year, but still got some things done for me and all of that. So football season is officially in the books. It is now hundreds of days away from college football returning and the NFL returning, but we will press on this show. And as we get to Jim Phillips' 5-year anniversary of being the ACC commissioner, I do want to take a couple things from the conversation Brett McMurphy had with him, a great Q&A. You can find it at On3. If you find a Brett McMurphy, you could search Brett McMurphy, Jim Phillips, you can find it. But Jim Phillips was incredibly positive about the direction of the ACC. And I think Jim Phillips, because I would argue he is very calm-natured, not somebody who is going to, by any means, rock the boat, and he is good-natured and he is a good man, but he's not going to go on a incredible PR campaign and do all these things. He's just going to go about his work, and in some ways that can certainly hurt you, but the results matter more. And this year with the ACC, and really the last 2 years with Miami, Clemson, and SMU getting into the college football playoff, he's seen his plan for football work. He has asked ACC schools to double down on their resources, and we've seen that. We've seen Duke go out and do what they've done and getting a Darian Mensah. We know how that has since played out, but it's very important for this league to double down on football and not let basketball drive the bus. And we've seen why, and we know where the money is, and we know how this league can certainly be, too over the top in a sense in today's day and age with its support for college basketball versus football. And there's still schools that are having to figure out how to make both happen and make it both happen at the level that the ACC needs it to. Jim Phillips, cited the run of Miami's leadership, doubling back down on football and making football the priority that it needed to be. And I think there's a lot of schools that, are doing that. Miami, SMU, Virginia, we see what they've done. Virginia Tech now. Virginia and Virginia Tech, that's going to be such a fun, I think, duo to watch, because you're going to see Virginia do what they do, and they've got high academics and high standards, and they're not going to ever have the recruiting budget of a Virginia Tech, in my opinion. But success is not always drawn up the same way, right? Like Virginia having the season that they just had, and if they drop back to maybe more 7-5 type of season, that's going to be still okay for Virginia. Well, what Virginia Tech is doing now is they're saying, we're going to double down on everything. We're going to take the more aggressive approach financially and make sure that it works however we need it to work. And they're going to see their team end up in the top 25 of recruiting rankings, which they did, as James Franklin and his staff did a great job assembling a recruiting class late to get that done. But that's the type of investment over at Virginia Tech that Virginia now has to eye and say, okay, we just had this great season. Now we've got to figure out how to be above our rival. We've got to continue to get to that level. And that's where it's kind of a flywheel type mentality when you see schools around your conference double down. Now, like as Jim Phillips said, quote, it's been a conscious and strategic decision to provide more resources to develop our plans for branding, marketing, how we use the network. And I think this year is reflective of that. There's so much that is working from the ACC side to pump football, and schools are watching each other pump football. And that's a motivating factor. Like, I think what Cal just did to Stanford and beating Stanford beating Cal revitalized that program to another level where they're now going after it with Tosh Lapoy, and they've got some momentum with JKS out there. And when you see a North Carolina kind of double down with the Bill Belichick and they make a change at coordinator and they are trying to figure it out, NC State is a school that needs to kind of be dragged along. We've seen the investments at Georgia Tech. We've seen the investments in Miami, of course, and you're going to see these schools kind of pop up here, there, this and that. And it's all a competitive environment now in football, where I think some schools, and there's a couple out there that still need to figure out certain things. I'm looking at you, Boston College. I'm looking at you to an extent, Syracuse, that need to go to that next level. But Jim Phillips is a part of that driving force behind that and saying, hey, here's what we need to do to make sure that we see results. Like, I'm not a big bowl season matters, but it sure is nice when you're going to the offseason when the ACC had a winning record against the SEC and had 7 Power 4 wins in bowl season. That's a really good result for your league. And Jim Phillips and what he's done deserves a lot of credit for what he called, quote, steady and consistent elevation and prioritization of football in the conference. A really good year, but we still know that we have work to do, and we want to continue that kind of ascension. Not being satisfied with Miami going to a national championship, not being satisfied with some of the, let's say, non-traditional schools having the success that they did this year in Virginia, Duke, Wake Forest, some of those programs. Knowing that Florida State, Clemson, Virginia Tech, some of those classics have to elevate their programs back to where they were. Those are all the continued work areas that they want to find ways to help elevate. And they've done that through success initiatives and the viewership initiatives. Those are all opportunities for programs to get more money to maybe, if today's day and age of college football and really college conferences stays what it is and everybody just negotiates their own TV deals, those type of things are, on the table to really help keep the ACC strong. And, I think there's something to that. We'll see how all of this plays out, with conferences either growing or, renegotiating TV deals and what all that looks like in 2030 and as that approaches. But for the ACC and what they've done, they have said, hey, we're going to grow revenue, and we have. That's 56% growth in revenue over the last 5 years without a change in a TV agreement. I think that is really, really good partnership for the league. So, and that goes from the league to their members. It's a precarious spot still, because just this is college athletics. It is stab you in the back type of mentality across the country, and the ACC has seen that a little bit with some of the lawsuits. But Jim Phillips has done a terrific job here navigating these choppy waters, and they continue to find ways to innovate. I would like to see the league take a little bit more of a brash approach in certain scenarios, which we saw with Miami and Notre Dame. But I mean, in terms of how they market the league, I think it is just needs a little bit of a juice push there from some sort of avenue. And I'm not sure what that looks like, because again, you go back to Jim Phillips and what he said, consistent elevation. And it's just a league that is consistently kind of churning the wheels in the right way, and they're seeing success because of it. I don't know if that is just the way. And next year we see Virginia Tech pop off and Clemson get back, and Florida State, who we'll talk about in a moment, get back to these crazy levels, or if it needs a little bit more of a push marketing sense that is not uncomfortably forced, like let's say having a wrestling title belt as your championship trophy, or something of that nature, or having a commissioner that says you should have 7 teams in the college football playoff. But there's a happy medium, and I think Jim Phillips is looking for that as one of the next steps for this league, and how to elevate it outside of just having these college athletic programs build the right way that you would hope they would, and still represent the ACC's values, which are, I think, one of the more original group of models of what you want college athletics to be. You want the pageantry of what we saw at North Carolina Duke in basketball. You want the ability of a Virginia Duke championship game, although the tiebreakers are getting fixed. They need to be fixed. But you want this kind of competitive balance that is real and isn't forced. That is what the ACC is working towards, and it should be commended. So just wanted to kind of share some of the couple notable things. There's much more on Jim Phillips's 5-year anniversary from that Q&A with Brett McMurphy of On3. I thought it was just brilliantly done. Some really cool questions and good answers from Jim Phillips in there. The college football playoff is staying the same. That is because the Big Ten and the SEC can't agree on what to do. Kirk Herbstreit, though, did an interview, and this is where you want to talk about forced. I think this is really, silly in one sense, because on one hand, Kirk Herbstreit was absolutely right that I think the NCAA and these conferences, they need one commissioner. But here's the problem. You have way too many schools to have one commissioner that can veto what the college commissioners or the conference commissioners want to happen. So there's one angle there. I do agree there needs to be one voice that leads college athletics in the right direction. I mean, I think an Oliver Luck would be a terrific choice for something like that. But you do have some really interesting thoughts here, where he says there also needs to be a breakaway from the Power Four and from the Group of 5 or Group of 6. And I just don't agree with that. I don't think that's good for college athletics. I don't think that you have these programs that in the Group of 6 are dying to be, in some cases, Power 4 programs, and they're trying and they're doing everything in their might, and they're spending at a disgustingly crazy level to try and do it in some cases. That's good for the game. That's good. And you have fun stories like, Tulane and James Madison and these programs that you get opportunities to actually play Power 4 opponents. And that helps fund your athletic department, number one. But I was surprised to hear Kirk Herbstreit calling for a breakaway of Power 4 and Group of 6. Now, I think the college football playoff has an opportunity to create a separate playoff for Group of 6 that would get them in and kind of create like a little 12-team playoff, let's call it. and leave it at 12 and have the top 12 teams in the group of 6 kind of battle for that type of a trophy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But as far as a pure breakaway, I don't want in my college football soup of mess that we've got. I don't want the same big brands being able to play each other and that be it. I think you've got to have a way to have these group of 6 matchups that serve a purpose in their own right. Like, do I think FCS teams should play Power 4 schools? No, I think those FCS schools should join the FBS level and then play those games. And if we need to have 140 something schools, that's okay. But to have just a Power 4 level of what would that be, 70 something schools, I don't like it. I don't like it. I think it's a scenario that just creates this kind of, I don't know. I like the idea of college athletics having those games where the fans can come back to their school in September or in some cases October and November and have a game against a group of 6 opponent and it'd be kind of a nice relaxing weekend on your college campus. I don't know. Some of those games still serve a purpose. So that said, I love the idea of 10 Power 4 games on your schedule. And I think that's a very realistic opportunity for colleges around the country to do. And most are doing it. The ACC is doing it. A lot of these college conferences are doing it. But I just was surprised that Kirk Herbstreit was calling for a breakaway. So not just kind of an icky feeling. I don't know if Kirk has as much of a pulse on college athletics as he did in the past because he now shares so much time with the NFL doing that Thursday night game. And I'm just being honest. I think Kirk Herbstreit is unbelievable calling, doing the color commentating and things like that. And I think his view of the game and how the game is played is really strong. I don't think he has the best feel for what is actually going on at the ground level of the game anymore, because I think some of his time is being spent having to prepare during the week for the NFL. It costs him on the back end of it as he's leaving Friday to go show up in whatever city College Game Day is at. I was really surprised to hear that from him. So that was kind of a tail end thought that I saw while I was on vacation and spending some time just doing some reading as well by the pool, kind of recharging. So maybe we see some changes, but I just don't like the idea of a breakaway. All right. Speaking of a incredible event like we saw, the Super Bowl, what they continue to put on is just a masterclass in owning an entire week. Make sure you have the right partner when you put on your own events for your own company. And that is why we partner with Corporate Magic. Corporate Magic is an incredible company that does great work at such a high level. And you might have already been to a Corporate Magic event. You might have already seen some of their work and their work that is presented in front of millions, or they could be incredible national sales meetings. They can be global broadcasts. And all of those things leave you with a lasting memory and experience, whether it's the dramatic staging, the content, or the precision of the event. Corporate Magic delivers with accuracy and care. So make sure you visit corporatemagic.com to learn more. The link is in our podcast episode description. And make sure you have the partner that knows that the big stage demands a partner who knows how to perform when the stakes are high. That is our friends at Corporate Magic. So great work, great stuff from them. And we continue to appreciate their partnership here at All Access AM. Let's close out with this for you guys. And some of you guys will probably be turning this off because this is a little bit old, but I do think there is something to the what's next here. And the what's next here is Gus Malzahn has retired. And first of all, congratulations to Gus Malzahn and an incredible coaching career. What he's done and what he was able to do at the college and high school level, very, very, very strong stuff from him. And win a national championship at Auburn and change the game offensively, and certainly been one of those coaches that I think has done it the right way for the most part. So congratulations to him, and has done an outstanding job throughout his coaching career. So he's stepping away, And that means Tim Harris is being promoted at FSU as the offensive coordinator of the Seminoles. But here we go. Here's the caveat. Mike Norvell is back calling plays for Florida State. And I am incredibly intrigued to hear how this is going to go, or to watch how this is going to go for the Seminoles. Mike Norvell calling plays is not a bad thing, in my opinion. I think here's the caveat. I think he's done a subpar job picking his quarterback for the Seminoles over the last couple of years since Jaden Travis. And that is a Jordan Travis. And that is a really, really scary thought, because I am high on Ashton Daniels. I think he could be an under the radar answer to the Seminoles' problems offensively. And you pair him with Mike Norvell as a play caller, I think we're going to see that get on track here a little bit for the Seminoles, because he has a lot more success calling plays than he does without having plays, on his play calling on his resume, in my opinion. Like I think the offense for Florida State has not necessarily been the issue. The offensive play calling has not been the issue for Florida State. I think personnel has been. I think that's where Mike Norvell in this new day and age, and that's why they've gone out and hired a new general manager and made some front office changes. Those are all things that can change. But again, are we just walking into a year where Mike Norvell is a dead man walking? That's why they're doing this now. That's why this is not, a situation where, we're going to see, a big spend at the quarterback position or big changes to their personnel, because you can't fix, I think, what Florida State has from a personnel perspective around Ashton Daniels enough to maybe fix this problem entirely. But I do think Mike Norvell as the play caller is the right move for Ashton Daniels this year. Mike Norvell is going to go out swinging. He's going to go out swinging and doing it his way. I like him as a play caller. I think he challenges opposing defenses in a much better way than I would even argue Gus Malzahn has in this current era of what Gus Malzahn is facing and has faced. But Ashton Daniels at quarterback, don't sleep on him. I think he's got a little bit of something to him that Mike Norvell can dig out. It's going to be incredibly intriguing to watch. And Ashton Daniels was asked about this move, and as FSU is starting to do some interviews with some of these newcomers, but he said, Coach Mike Norvell is going to do a great job with the guys that we have on this offense. Coach Tim Harris is going to do a great job. And I think we're off on the right foot just with the way that we've come into offseason offensive meetings and approached the mindset we're going to have for this season and for this offseason. Quote, it's really promising for this offense. Now we'll see how it all goes. And FSU, I think, as a team is from what it seems, what their actions as a whole, as a program seem, that they're mailing in this year. That this is a punt year. This is we're going to move on for Mike Norvell. Just didn't have the money 2 year. But Mike Norvell, he's going to be calling plays. He's going to be making the decisions offensively about what they do down in, down out. And I just think he has a really good feel for that. If they can mess around and find out a little bit of juice offensively, and in year 2 of the Tony White defensive era, finds a little bit of a footing after an offseason where we saw a lot of departures of highly touted players from this FSU program, and they can win 8 games, they can win 7 games. Maybe it's enough. Maybe it's enough to keep Mike Norvell and find a way to build something through their new front office that becomes a little bit more sustainable. And I think this is a program that has lost its identity a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about budget deficits and all those things, but those are, of course, that's what happens when you have stadium renovations like they did. But this is a program that has lost its way a little bit. I think Mike Norvell calling plays is a little bit more of a push back to the identity that we've seen a little bit when FSU has had a little success. I think they could be one of the fun stories in the ACC. I don't love it, but I like Ashton Daniels just enough to go out on a little bit of a limb and say they're going to be better than they were last year with Mike Norvell calling plays over Gus Malzahn. This is still a staff that is probably going to be spending a lot of the offseason networking, searching for what's next. And that is always a scary situation to be in when you have a coach that most would have fired after this year or at certain points throughout the year, but they didn't end up firing him. And now that means you have a coach that is viewed as a quote dead man walking. But Mike Norvell is not going to back down from this. I think that's why, in part, he went with himself as the play caller here, elevated Tim Harris to the offensive coordinator roles. But you really have a really precarious spot here. So I think having the head coach in charge of this for this season, when it is a 1-year push to either stay and prove yourself, or you're going to be shown the door in all likelihood, I don't hate this move for Mike Norvell. Go out swinging. But the Gus Malzahn, I think, tenure at FSU wasn't ever going to be something that was going to lead them to greatness. Like, I thought Tommy Castellanos was a good fit for it. I did not love the overall personnel for FSU enough to make this thing happen. And of course it didn't at a high level at all. And so good for Gus to get out while he can in this time and spend time with family. But Mike Norvell, credit to him, taking on his own challenge here and looking for a way to stamp his name into this FSU program for better or for worse one more time. And that is going to be as the play caller for the Seminoles in 2026, which open with a night game. They open ACC play with a night game against SMU, but they do open the 2026 season with a week 0 matchup. So they'll get a little bit of a tune-up there as they'll take on New Mexico State at home in week 0. So we'll get a look at how Ashton Daniels in that FSU offense looks soon enough. But appreciate you guys listening to this edition of All Access AM. Please like, rate, review, hit the subscribe button. Help us out here. Grow this thing. We're back. We're off vacation and excited to attack the rest of this off season of ACC football and into, of course, March for college basketball. But we've got a lot more to talk about on the show later this week. We'll dive down into the ACC tournament and NCAA tournament. We'll look at some of the coaching changes across the league on assistants, why assistants are leaving for the NFL. We'll have some special guests on as well. So we'll do all that and more on the Wednesday edition of All Access AM, which is 7 to 8 a.m. Central. This is our last week of 7 to 8. We'll do 8 to 9 a.m. Central starting next Monday. But we appreciate all of you guys for watching on our YouTube channel and being in the chat with us. So we appreciate it. Hope you guys are off to a great Super Bowl Monday edition for you guys with All Access AM. And appreciate all of you guys listening, watching, and more. So thank you, and we'll catch you on Wednesday with another edition of All Access AM.